Hi, DerpyMoose99. This is an updated version of the tutorial for a hard start on Megamod 9. This concept was based on a video done by Pinstar many years ago called the Crossroads build, which I found kind of intriguing. So down through the years, all the games I've played, I sort of took that basic concept and played around with it and modified it to the way I play Megamod. So this is guaranteed, or 99 point whatever percent guaranteed to get you through the first couple of years. And let me just get into it here. So I've found a start on a map here that'll work pretty good. This is under fair conditions. I didn't go harsh conditions or anything like that. So the first thing we're going to want to do is pause everything. And usually what I do too is you come in here to tools and camera and set the Z key as your home key, just in case you wander off in the map. So if we look at this, we're going to go into the gatherers, and you can take any gatherer hut you want. I happen to like this one here. And I'm just going to roughly say, something like that. Okay. So the key here is that there's a bunch of forest within that. Now there's a bunch of stone and iron ore, and we're going to have to deal with that. So put that down first, pause it, and you see down here there's a cart. Now this is your only storage at the start of the game, so that will be what your people go to in the beginning. There's a small store of tools and food and firewood in there. So if you take a road, and if you do the road properly, that helps. So what you want to do is run this road down from that gathering hut to the cart. Okay? Now what we're going to do is put in the rest of our forest node here. So the next thing we're going to put in is a barn. Now, in Megamod 9 under small barns, and there's this thing called, or tab called Build Tiny Downtown Storage and a storehouse. Now this is a fairly reasonably priced storehouse and has a capacity of 18,000, which is pretty enormous for the size. And it's 32 logs and 6 stone. Looks like that. There's many different color schemes. I'll go for that one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that right next to the gatherer and right on the road there. Now the cool thing about this thing, other than its huge capacity, it's also pass-through, so there's a road that goes right through the middle of it too. Now, then when I want a little 4x4 stockpile here, so I'm going to line it up with the edge of that barn. Okay, so now we have a 4x4 stockpile. And then I'm going to put in 6 under the Colonial Charter CC homes. There is log cabin. These are 30 logs and 8 stone. And most importantly, they're for a family of 5, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So I'm just going to put, we'll say 6 of those in. Put them anywhere you want. Now, you might say that that's a lot of real estate to take up with houses. But what I've found is the distance that people have to commute matters a lot. So if you build all the houses for the forest node way out here, the time walking back and forth is lost production time. And so the lost area that you give up by building these cabins here actually more than makes up for in productivity from the shorter commute. Okay, so now we've got a gathering hut, we've got a storehouse, and oh yeah, very important to make sure these log cabins are on pause. You want everything on pause at the start. You have very limited people, and you want to make sure you do things in the correct order. Okay, and then just for fun, we're going to put in a forester lodge. I use the one that's sort of in the same theme set, but any of these will do, and there's varying sizes as well too. So put a forester's lodge right across from the gathering hut. Forester's lodge will do 2 things. It'll plant trees, and it will also chop down trees. So very important for the gatherer that there's lots of forest around. All the wild food tends to grow better in the forests. Okay, and the last thing I put in here is a hunter. So I've been using different models or different buildings here, but the one that fits this build set is this one here. Doesn't matter again which one you use. Okay, and I'm going to put that in there and pause that as well too. Okay, so outside of this, so we keep these buildings up over here, so we have the yellow circles. So what you want to do is make sure you don't build anything in those yellow circles. And also you want to make sure at some point, not now, but you clear all the rock and all the iron ore out of there. Now remember, be very, very careful what you use your labor for at the start here. So I like putting in an 8x5 stockpile. Yeah, I'm gonna put right about there. Now, the only reason I do that is I'm going to at some point here put in a storage barn right there, okay? And that's 5 wide, so I just match the stockpile up with that, but we won't put the barn in to start. So that stockpile actually nicely built without any work. That's a good thing. Now, in order to survive your first winter, you need one house, you need firewood, and you need food. Food is the hardest thing to get for sure, and the more your people have babies and the families grow, you're going to need more and more and more food all the time. Important to understand that you only need one house as long as there's firewood and food. And the other thing that's crucial to surviving the first couple of years is tools. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here to, I believe it's chopping over here. Oh, not that one, sorry. We're going to come into this one. We're going to go to fuel production, and we're going to pick one of the smaller choppers, right? So there's something called a tiny chopper, 2 logs, super easy to make. Kind of a bit, I guess, I don't know, cheaty, but some things about Megamod make it harder, but some things about Megamod make it easier. So there's a tiny chopper there, and we're going to put that on pause. Okay, so now we have a chopper, and the other thing we could use is a blacksmith. Now we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to activate all these builds at the same time. We're going to do this in a certain order. Okay, now you have to be careful because in Megamod here, the resources you have at the start are iron ore and stone. You don't have iron at the start. So you need something that deals with iron ore. So there's a couple of these that do and a couple of these that don't. What I actually like to do, and it's a little bit aggressive, but actually to build one of these blacksmiths here. Now, these blacksmiths are fairly expensive to build, so 32 log and 55 stone and 32 iron ore. But they're something that you can use throughout the game, and you can upgrade them at a point later in the game as well too, to be more productive. So I find those things to be the go-to one, but like I say, there's many different blacksmiths in there that you can play around with and decide what suits your fancy. There's also a workshop. If you go into the workshop tabs, there's different workshops, and some of those will actually make tools out of wood or tools out of stone and wood. So there's another option there if you want an easier build than these actual blacksmiths here. So we're getting real close to when we're actually going to activate things. So I want to bring up our telemetry here. So this is our inventory numbers. Okay, now this is the event log, and what you want to do here is there's something that looks like a glass, an empty glass. You want to click that so it's off. Anytime there's a shortage of resources, that'll be bing bong in your ear, and you don't want that. That'll drive you crazy. So here we are. We got almost everything on pause except for a blacksmith, which should be on pause. Now what we're going to do is, and we're still paused here, right? So spend some time at the start of the game lining things up too. So what we're going to do is go into the removal, and we're going to designate a bunch of trees. Now, you could do the trees inside the circle, but then you just have to regrow them later. But one of the reasons for this 8x5 stockpile here is that we're going to have the people work close to the cart and gather a bunch of resources. So trees from there. Now we're going to need some stone for this build as well too. So we're actually going to take the stone from inside the yellow circles because we want to clear that out. Now to facilitate that here, we have a stockpile that's in the circle that has not been built. And as we turn these buildings on to be built, the first thing that will happen is laborers will come and remove all the resources on top of the buildings, and they'll need a stockpile. So pretty important that this stockpile is activated. So we're going to come in here, gear, priority, and we're going to prioritize that stockpile. Okay, now we still can't start yet. we're going to go into here. This is our distribution of labor, if you will, our professions tab. And I'm just going to use the small one to start, but you can play with that. There's a million of them in there. So I have 8 people to start with. So I'm going to go, I'm going to go 4 and 4. You can play around with this, but because I've laid this road in, the first thing the builder is going to do is do the road. Even if I, set some or took some of these buildings off of pause, the builders would not go after them until the road was done, just the way the coding's done. So I'm going to go 4 and 4. So 4 people are going to be gathering lumber and stone, and 4 people are going to be building this road to get that done in a maximum amount of time. So I'm actually going to go on to 10 here, and we can let this rip. Okay, and there's our stockpile is built. Keep an eye on our inventory tab over there. You can see logs and stone are incrementing. And if we look at the road, now the way the roads work is I started the road here, went down there. So they go to the end that you ended your cursor at, and they work backwards from there. So it looks to me like they've pretty much built that road. So now we're going to pick the gathering hut, we're going to pick the storehouse, and we're going to pick the log cabin that is right in line, this one here. And I'll show you why I picked those. Those 3 buildings are in line, and we can use the priority tool and prioritize those 3 buildings. Okay? So those buildings will be built. Okay, and if they run out of log and stone, they'll go to some of the resources that have been designated and pick those up. But in the beginning, you're gonna want to keep designating some logs every once in a while. Okay, there's our first cabin come up, and you notice in here are 2 adults, and the adults in this game are, well, until there's schools, adults are 10 years old and older. Don't worry about that. The year length is different on this planet. And then 3 kids. So there's a demonstration. Now, if this was a house that only held 4 and there was a family of 5, the 5 people would still move in. It doesn't break up families. But if there's 2 people that take over a house and then start having children, then if you only are in a house with a limit of 4, they could only have 2 babies or 2 children in the house at the same time. Let's carry on. So now we've got 1 house, and we've got our gathering hut and our storehouse. So, and by the way, this second priority that I'm going to do here is completely unnecessary. I just like doing it because it makes me feel like I'm doing something. Okay. Here's our storehouse up. Now I think about this time, I'm going to take the tiny chopper off of pause, and we can prioritize all that stuff. Okay, the gatherer's hut's come up. So I would say right now we have 8 adults and 8 children, and food is at 522. So I'm going to go down to 3 builders, and I'm going to put 3 people in the gathering hut. Now see this food limit here. You don't have to change this at the beginning, but you'll butt up against that pretty quick. So what I like to do is just go in here, put all 9s, and just max that out. Okay, let's let that rip. Okay, now our tiny chopper is up. So other than tools, we have the capability to make firewood. We have logs in stock, and we have gatherers gathering food, and we have storage for the gatherers to put that, and we have a house for warmth. Okay, so setting aside tools, that's enough to survive, assuming we can actually get some firewood chopped and stuff like that. So I'll just leave that open to see the progress. Now the limit right now for fuel, if we look at this tab here, is set for 200, and that's fine for the start of the game, but you want to inch that up over time as your town grows. Okay, the next thing we have to deal with is this blacksmith. So right now we have 12 tools, which for 8 adults will last a bit of time. So you do have a bit of leeway here. It's not as desperate as a food and fuel situation. And the recipe I like to use, there's a recipe in here that will use logs and stone, but stone becomes a fairly precious building commodity, and iron ore is really only useful for tools and other advanced things down the road. So you really want to reserve your stone for building and stone roads and stuff like that. So what you want to do at this point is look around your map. Now the first priority for removing iron would be from within the circle here. So if we say collect iron ore, yeah, there's not a ton in there, but there's enough. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I am going to prioritize that ore collection. Now there's a few stone that have been designated in there and that'll be picked up in the priority, but that's fine. So I'm just going to pull up the stockpile from the forest node here and just see how much iron ore goes in there. And the other thing I want to do, let's take the actual blacksmith building off pause. And over here there's also a mineral tab. I forget which one exactly. It's the middle column, second one down, and that'll also tell you how much iron ore you have at the start anyways. So you can see they'll be in there collecting up. We've got iron ore going into the stockpile. Now what I would suggest is when your mineral number hits 32, which is what you need to build the blacksmith, is then you go down and prioritize the actual blacksmith. But right now, laborers are bringing what they can to the building site. Okay, we're at okay, there's more ore to be collected there. The other thing you can do too is if you build a stockpile, say there's another patch of iron ore over here, just build a stockpile right in the middle of that. Say a 4x4 or something. And once that's built, I mean, that'll actually collect some just building it, but with a stockpile right in the middle of it, you can collect up more ore easily. Okay, we have 37 iron ore, so we're going to prioritize the blacksmith now. Now you see all these people that are homeless, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of them soon, but if you don't have fuel, food, and tools, your town will end. And I can't tell you how many times as a beginner, when I was first trying to figure this game out years ago, how many towns I killed, by not figuring that out. So food, fuel, and tools, and say that to yourself all the way through the whole game. Okay, the blacksmith is being built now. Okay, now here's our blacksmith. Now if we go into products, we can do wooden tools with just logs, stone tools with log and stone, but like I say, you don't want to do that. And there's other more advanced tools. So the ones I pick are the rough tools. They're 1 log and 1 iron ore. And we don't need a tool limit of 50 to start with because we only have 9 adults now. So I'm just going to go 25 in there. I'm going to assign 1 person. Okay, let's look, we have 3 builders and 1 laborer. Let's balance that out to 2 and 2. Now at this point in time, we don't really have the logs for it, but we're going to build the rest of the log cabins. Yeah, food is... Here's your options here. You can build the rest of the log cabins, or you can say, I'm nervous about food, so I want to build the hunter's cabin. So I'm not too nervous about food right now. Famous last words, but the other option is if you have very few trees in here, you may actually want to build the forester lodge pretty early and put 1 person in there planting trees just so that this area becomes more lush over time. But right now we've got good tree coverage, so I'm not so worried about that. So I'm actually gonna kick off the log cabins. Now I laid 6 cabins down, and as far as how many you need, if we have 9 adults, that means there's 4 families and 1 person that's looking for a spouse. So I like to move people out of the houses as quickly as possible when you're in a growth position, so I would round up and call that the requirement of 5 houses. So we'll leave 1 log cabin still paused. Okay, and we're going to designate a little bit more few more trees. Okay, and we'll let that rip. Okay, there's a young family there with 2 children. Okay, our tiny chopper has chopped 224 firewood so far. We're in late autumn. Now we're out of logs now, but that's okay. We'll pick a few more up. We'll just prioritize some of these ones that we've already designated. There's another family of 5 going in. Now you see here there's a 12-year-old gatherer there. So that's somebody that's ready to move out. That'll be our 9th person that needs their own cabin. They don't need it, but actually that's a really prime example of what I was talking about. So if you are trying to grow quickly, here's a person that's ready to move out. Now this couple, they're in their early 20s, but they can't have another child until there's room in the house. So that's why you want to move this person out. And hey, they're just going to be close by, so it's not like you have to go far away from mom and dad. So food is getting low. We're down to 442, so I'm going to pump up the gatherer to the full 4. And I'm going to really contemplate. I think I'm going to contemplate. Yeah, you know what? We can build those 2 log cabins. We'll unpause the forest lodge. No, we won't. We'll unpause. We will unpause the hunting cabin. Okay, one more log cabin to be built, but I think what we'll do is we'll prioritize the hunting cabin here. Now we're at 80 logs and 40 odd stone, 58 iron ore, 33 tools. At this point, if you wanted to build something to make coats, you could, but it would only be for really role playing. Early on, the coats don't matter. What the coats do is allow you to stay outside and work a little bit longer. And early on here, we're working so close to the houses, there's no big deal at all. So like I say, if it makes you feel better role playing or whatever you want to do something to make coats. But in Megamod, you'll struggle at the very beginning with material to actually make the coats. And what I mean by that is, the hunting cabins will give you some leather, but not a ton. And the gatherer will give you some flax to make linen, but not a ton. So I don't worry about it at the start, but like I say, you can if you want. So hunting cabins come up. We have 2 builders and 1 laborer right now, so I'm not going to put anybody in the hunting cabin right away, but I am going to have that on standby. Okay, now let's go in and finish this last house. And as soon as that has all the material, okay, it has all the material, I'm going to actually unpause the forest lodge. Okay, now 1 laborer doesn't seem like much, but in this particular case, the chopper and the blacksmith are both at maximum capacity. So those 2 people will be working as laborers. Okay, and there's our 14-year-old moving out to their own house. Okay, and when we have enough material for the forest lodge. And I'm going to put the storage barn in now. Okay, the forest lodge, I think what I'll do is I'll go down to 1 builder and 2 laborers, and we'll go plant. And I'm just going to put 1 person in the forest lodge. And then even though it's fairly lush, there's lots of green space here. They'll start planting trees. Now, if it's better to actually have 2 people doing the planting, but 1 person is enough to start. Okay. So the reason I built this storage barn, and there's many storage options too. This is upgradable. It kind of fits the whole motif here, but there's many different options there. You can do different things, but this storage cart has very limited capacity, and it's often in an awkward place. So what I like to do is build a larger barn and then get rid of the storage cart. Not something you have to do, but you know. Okay, the other thing that's helpful here is you go around this forest node outside the circles and just build some 4x4 stockpiles. And you can go up here. And I'll build a 5x5 there. Once those stockpiles get built, it makes it a little easier to clear out all the stone and iron ore out of here, because then people don't have to carry the material so far. And it helps when this is in operation too for the foresters. When they chop down trees, they can just put the logs in the near stockpile instead of wandering off somewhere. Okay, there's our storage barn built. Our storage cart is there. Now, I'm going to schedule this for termination so that all the material gets moved into the barn, but what that'll do is we'll run out of tools, because I think all the tools are stored in here. So I'm going to go into this blacksmith and say, make this, I don't know, 50. Not 250, I'm going to make this 50. And this blacksmith who's working as a laborer is going to run back and start working on tools, so that when we designate the storage cart and tools shoot down to 2 in stock, we don't run out of tools, because the blacksmith will be, yeah, there they are. They just ran into the blacksmith shop and started making tools. So I'm going to prioritize the destruction of that cart. So the way destruction works is, first laborers get rid of the material, and then when the structure is empty of any material, then the builders will take it down. Okay, so once that's done, and what you want to do is build those stockpiles, like I say, and clear out the iron ore and the stone from inside the circle, so that you can fully populate this basically with food and with trees. And the next step that I would do is I would come into our construction thing here, and I would go construction, and I would pick, I would say this lumber cutter maybe. That just needs stone and log. There's a tiny lumber here, which is a good choice. So if you put a tiny lumber in here, say right next to this 8x5 stockpile. Okay, what this tiny lumber will do for you is it'll allow you the capability to create a little bit of lumber. And what you want to do is build a school next. Now the timing on the school, you can go for a really early school, and that'll pause your growth for a while, because rather than when they turn 10, they won't become a worker, they'll actually become a student if there's a functioning school with a teacher. And then depending on their distance from the school, it could be anywhere from say 5 to 10 years before they graduate. That's also one of the reasons why you want schools as close as possible to your houses. So when you go to school, it's entirely something that you should make your own choice. Maybe try it early school, but later school. I prefer biting the bullet and go fairly early school. It puts a bit of a pause of, like I say, 4 or 5 years on the game, but it gives you a chance to lay things out. You just have to manage your food very carefully during that time frame. Okay, we have a question mark on the lumber because I accidentally built 2 there. Yeah, okay, that's why the clicking was kind of funny there. Anyways, one of these is built, and what we're going to do, or what you would do from here, is decide when you want to put somebody in there. Now you can see, while we were working on that kind of stuff, we've suddenly shot up to 14 adults. So what we do is we would build that second log cabin and then decide what we'd want to build. So typically from here, what I would do is maybe build a large market, something like that. That's not the one I would use, but there's many to choose from. And somewhere down here, what you'd want to make sure is the yellow circle from this market covered these houses inside the forest circle. And then what I would do is I would complete the 6th cabin over there, and then whatever additional houses, I would build them around the marketplace. And that would be housing for the people like the blacksmith, the chopper, the lumber, and the people that run the market, the vendors. This has been Derpy Moose 99, and there's a tutorial that will get you through 99.9 times out of 100. I'll get you through the first couple years, and no fuss, no muss. Now where you go from here is typically I would build more forest nodes. Like in this particular case, I'd build one out to the left, I would also probably plunk some fishing along the trade river here, which I would consider that temporary because I'd want to put trading ports and stuff in there. Fishing is a great way to provide food to supplement the forest nodes. Anyways, I'm DerpyMoose99, and there was your tutorial for Banished Megamod 9 Hard Start. Thank you.